be a little bit of a story time, kind of like different than my regularly scheduled content, but hopefully it still touches who it needs to touch. I believe that it will. I'm not even sure if I'm gonna keep this up. I might post this and then delete this because I'm not 100% sure if this is something that needs to be shared or if it's just something more for me. But so I took this trip, earlier this year, and looking back at it now, I have like just this really different perspective of how much God was in the details, versus like at the time, like I still knew He was around, but it like hit me like a ton of bricks like only recently. So I guess that's kind of why I'm sharing this now. And some of you might know about this trip because I did share with a few of my friends, so you might be like, hey, I know what you're talking about. But so I took a trip to see two friends in two different locations. This was back in March of this year. And bear with me because it's kind of got like all these different moving parts. So, and I'm not the most like organized like in my brain. So I'll try my best to keep a flow. But just forgive me if I just kind of like go on a tangent or just lose you a little bit. I'm so sorry. But stick to the end. Like it's a pretty good story. I think. I hope that people will get something out of this. But so I was gonna go see one friend and then go see another, and it kind of like the idea of this trip kind of was like last minute, and how I am is I'm not good with last minute stuff. Like last minute stuff just sends alarm bells throughout my body. Like I cannot handle that. So it was very like at the time I just was like, oh, I just randomly feel like doing this, but I think there was like an actual like purpose as to why. I only see that now looking back. I didn't see that at the time. But I told my friend like, hey, I think I kind of want to come and like see you and see your place, and gonna try and do that like later this month or something like that. Like it was very quick, and she was okay with it, and so I was trying to plan that, and then I don't know how things had shifted to where like I also had included this other friend at the tail end of the trip, but somehow like that came up, and we started talking, and I can't remember if it was because we wanted to see this concert or we were already kind of like entertaining the idea of meeting up, and then this concert was happening and we were like, oh my gosh, like we both need to go, we both need to go. So, but the concert is like a huge reason why the latter portion of the trip needed to happen, and that goes into the first part, if that makes sense. Like they both kind of needed to happen in order for the other one to happen. I don't know. And so, help me, Lord. I'm trying to also sift through like what details are actually needed and what isn't. But as I'm speaking, so I'm trying to kind of like last minute plan this with my first friend, and then all of a sudden, like, me and my other friend, we get word about this concert, and like trying to plan like how to meet up. So I start having these two different plans, and as I mentioned, I am not a last minute planner type person. I was like not okay. Like, I was like, why am I doing this? Seriously. I felt really like I want to a degree, but at the same time, like, this is so far beyond how I operate. So I don't know where that came from, or maybe I do, but yeah, it was wild. Anyways, so um, and at the time I was also like working and doing other things, so the planning was like really, it was honestly kind of a burden, to be perfectly honest. And especially because since I had these two different plans, and I knew I wanted to like be able to do them like all in one go, like, because my first friend that I was gonna meet up with was 4 hours away, and then my next 4 hours away by like driving, and then my next friend was, well, we were gonna meet up in LA, so it was like that's at least somewhere between like 6 and 8 hour drive from where I am, and I ended up, the funny thing is that like it wasn't even like really a road trip. Honestly, it was more of like a every means of traveling trip, because other than a boat, like I took a plane, I took a train, I took a bus, and there was a road trip element to this. So it was so wild. Oh my gosh, I took two buses actually. Anyways, so okay, I'm planning all of this, and me and my friend are trying to figure out, how do we go about our plans. And our plans were really kind of like even more of a hack job than I was already doing with the first planning, because not only was it last minute and I had these other plans going on, I had like other things in life going on as well, but also um, at the time she was either preparing to or was outside of the country or something. There was a huge time difference. There were all these things that it was just like, so basically I was like on my own. So it was just all these things that just really were like, I do not want any part of this, but yet here I am. So um and because the plans like from the first friend would affect so much the next, and kind of vice versa, it was not fun. But we really want to go to this concert, and I was looking up, like tickets for us and everything, and I realized that it was a really exclusive concert, and a really it was actually sold out as well. So I'm like, this might not be happening. I was a little sad about it, but I'm like, that's no big deal. It's fine. We can still like meet up, but something about it felt like very like, even though we wanted to like meet up regardless, something about it felt very like kind of detrimental to me in a sense. Like, I was like, oh, like I really like feel like I really need to go to this concert, or want to go to this concert, whatever the case is. And so I'm like, I'm not gonna give up. I'm still gonna try. Meanwhile, all the planning and everything, I plan with my friend, like literally, I think I was planning the week of to go to her place later that, like, during the weekend, and stay like till Monday or Tuesday. So Um, and of course, I felt bad because that's also like, you know, like stressing her out, and it was so much. And I eventually told her, like, you know, one of the reasons why I'm sorry, like, I'm having such a hard time planning this is because, you know, I've got these other plans, and where I'm supposed to meet up with my other friend is in LA, which is still with driving, because I wasn't going to drive to my friend. I was actually going to take the train, just because of some my car is not the most reliable. So I was like, I'm like struggling to figure out transportation um, from LA, or sorry, from where you are to LA. I don't know. Like, I can't fly. I can't. The getting a getting to a train station could be very difficult. So I was like, do you have like any advice or anything? And she said, well, actually, I have something that might help you out. This was after days of me going back and forth of, it's like, well, if I do this, then I can, all these little, like, there were all these little moving parts to this plan. And she said, I am actually going to be taking a road trip with my boyfriend to um, this area that's an hour outside of LA. Um, we're not going to go into LA, but if you can figure out transportation from there, you're more than welcome to come with us. And I was like, what? Like, I was so shocked. I could not believe that that was, um, it just so happened that that was the case. I was really, really shocked by that. Especially because I had taken on so much where I had, like, deliberated, and like I'm like, I can't make this work, I can't make that work, like, how does this work? So I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you, Lord, like, yes, absolutely, please count me in, blah blah blah. And so at this point, I don't know what day but it was getting down to the hour, you know, again, last minute, again, all these moving parts. And um you know, I was looking up these concert tickets, and I'm like, okay, let me just email the venue, because sometimes they will do like the will call or whatever, where you can get tickets like at the actual place. And so I had emailed them, and they said like, nope, we're absolutely sold out. Like, you're not going to be able to go to this show. And I'm like, dang, like, okay, well, let me just see if anyone's selling them online. And I looked around, and yeah, there were scammers selling, not even, they weren't even selling them, but yeah. And so I had said, okay, like, this this might not be, this might not work. And I was telling my friend, and you know, I was like, just be aware if there's anyone selling them or anything, but you know, I don't think this is gonna work. And for some reason, I prayed about it, and for something so minuscule as like a concert, like, I definitely would not typically um, take that to prayer. Like, it seems like it's like, you know, if you want to go, you go. If you can go, you go. If you can't, you can't. It's not that big of a deal. However, I will say, I want to be kind of elusive when I mention this artist. There's a reason why this particular artist um, is significant, and he how do I say this? I'd been given like a prophetic word about him, um, and so that probably was part of the reason why I was like, okay, I really do like want to go. And um, you'll see in other videos, like, there will be other videos that will reference back to this, or this will be used as a reference, I should say. Um, but anyways, so I remember praying about it, and the Lord, like, gave me this peace about it. And I can't remember if, like, if he actually, like, audibly spoke to me or what the deal was, but he said, like, you know, like, don't worry about it. Like, sorry, there was like I guess it was a train, but it was the weirdest horn sound ever. It sounded like a little like bike horn, but it was really really loud. But yeah, he said like don't worry about it. Like you'll do not worry about these tickets. Do not worry about these tickets. Something around those lines. And I'm like, okay, like, I mean, I guess, like, if you say so, then I won't. But I mean, okay, where's this coming from? And at this point, I was still very much kind of learning to hear from the Lord and like still um, not 100% like if He says it, He means it. And you'll see why that's significant later in the story. So, but yeah, if he says something, he 100% means it. So if he's spoken to you about something, giving you a word about something, like, it's gonna come to pass, it doesn't matter, like, what the circumstances look like. He's not saying it just to, like, get your hopes up, just for it to fail. Like, there's significance behind it. Remember, he is the creator of all things, Lord of the universe. Like, if he speaks it, it's gonna happen. You know, he spoke everything to it. It was by his word that everything was formed. Like, why would he not have that authority over your life? You know, Jeremiah 29:11. Jeremiah 29:11. Okay, anyways. So, okay, let me think about the details that I need to share and not share. So, um, at that point, I was like, okay, let's just go forward with this. Like, even though I have no assurance, and by the way, again, I'm not only am I not the type of person who likes to do things like last minute when it comes to planning, and especially when there's all these moving parts, the idea of going to a concert without a ticket is like you're asking to just sit outside the venue or something like that. But then when I did tell my friend, she was like, well, there's always someone there that either they can't go or their friend can't go or something like that. So there's got to be some way like we'll be able to get a ticket. I think I'm gonna make this a two-part thing because I see that it's almost been 20 minutes and I don't think I'm gonna be able to finish. So I'm like, okay, that's true, that's true. So I'm like, all right, we're gonna just forget about the logic of the situation that, I don't have a ticket and this concert feels really significant. We're just gonna like trust. We're just gonna believe. Um, Side note: while I'm sharing this story, I wanted to talk about like the spiritual, biblical um, takeaways that I've gotten from this, and I wanted to talk about like the idea of logic and faith. How if my one friend sees this, he's probably gonna like laugh at me because I used to say that I think that faith is the suspension of logic. It's like they're not it's you can't really hold both. And um like when you're really like acting in faith or something like that, like obviously you can still be a logical being, but just within those steps of taking faith or whatever. But I retract that because what the Lord revealed to me when I was um, I was kind of going through the story in my head was that there's a level of logic and a level of wisdom that we hold, and then there's the level of wisdom that the Lord holds. And when we submit to that, that's us humbling ourselves, but also um, showing that there is logic outside of our own understanding of logic, or like it's like we have one level and he has another, and when we submit to that, we're aware that the logic that we have is not all there is to have, I suppose. Basically, you know, there's more than just like um, there's more to be learned. There's more to understand. Just in general, not even like spiritually, but just like in general, than you know what we hold as truth. I think there's a term for this. It's solipsism. The belief that you know only truth can be extracted from like our own sense of reality or something like that. Um, and so, really, it's not that I'm all of a sudden not a logical creature. Like, I could logically understand that nothing about this situation made sense, and it's gonna make a lot less sense as I continue on. Like, it was very hectic, last minute. You know, when you're planning something fun, like, well, for me, planning is never fun. I don't like planning in general, to be honest, because I don't feel very good at it, but even more so, in such a chaotic situation. But um, I could logically see how this was like a mess. But what it is instead of just getting rid of logic and throwing it out the window, it's no, not a suspension. Sorry, it's a submission to faith. So it's like you still have your logic thinking brain. You still are aware of how this might not make sense, but you say, despite that, I've been told this, or I know, you know, the God that I serve, I know, you know, the things of the Spirit, and when the Spirit is speaking to me, and the Holy Spirit is speaking to me, and so I submit to my faith and put my logic and pride, actually, on a shelf. So, that's a little explanation about that because I know there's kind of like, I'm not the only one who said the thing about logic being like the absence of faith, but it's definitely not. I know like a lot of people kind of unfortunately want to throw rocks and say like, oh, you're just crazy, blah, blah, blah. Like I've heard people say like, you know, we think that we won't, because we believe in salvation and heaven and all of that, like the afterlife, they think like, oh, you think you're not gonna die? Like, how crazy are you? Like, it's not like, I'm not stupid. I'm not, um, you know, unaware of how crazy some of this stuff sounds. Like, logically, I can very much see that, you know, even just the belief in something that you can't see. I mean, you could go back and forth. I'm totally going on a tangent, I'm sorry. You could go back and forth because I believe that there actually are a lot of things that we believe in that we don't see, but it's so like ingrained in us that we don't even like stop and consider it. But that's a whole topic for another time. Yeah, faith is not the absence of logic. It's just the submission of your own level of logic and wisdom to the Lord's. Um, and Yeah, so, okay, where was I? I totally went off. But, so, yeah, we're going forward. I'm still, like, not 100% sure about my plans with my first friend, not 100% sure what's going on with my second friend, but, like, since we've decided we're going to move forward, my next goal was to find us uh, a place to sleep, to be, like a hotel or Airbnb, whatever we needed. And so that became this whole fiasco. On top of still trying to figure out the other plans with the other friend. Again, my friend at this point, my second friend, sorry, she is out of the country. We have a crazy time difference. She's spending time with her family, so we are not in a place where um, we can actually plan things together. And I always, like I say, I feel very insecure planning, so I just was like, I mean, I guess I'll do it, but I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I hate this so much. But, So, and then another thing, my first friend, she was like, "Can you like let me know what the plans are like soon?" Because again, like literally, I'm trying to figure this stuff out. I think the week of meeting her and meeting up with her, or the weekend, um, and so I'm like, yeah, I know, I'm so sorry. Like, there's all these moving parts to this, blah blah blah, and I'm gonna try and spare you the details, but I go and I go for this hotel and it I didn't like do enough research and it was kind of in this ghetto area and for me the issue was I was one of the nights I was gonna have to be alone um, so I wasn't feeling that like I do not want to I don't have reliable transportation like I'm not I can't do this so but I had already like gotten a room and everything so and then there was all the oh my gosh there's so many stuff that happened so in order to cancel, because I did it through like a third party, I had to um, go through all these hoops and bounds. Like, I had to contact this person and I had to do it like at the specific, all this freaking stuff. Never again using, who was it? No, I'm not going to put them on blast, but just if you can directly book, if you're going to go with a hotel, um, directly book if you can because this just is so ridiculous. And I mean, it literally took me days to get my reservation canceled, trying to avoid the fee, trying to get all my money back because I had at that point I had broken down and I had said, Lord, if if there is something significant here, which it feels like there is, you need to come through and you need to help me be able to cancel this because I've already spent money on this. I'm not gonna go spend money on another place, you know, to another accommodation. Somehow, by the grace of God, it took me. And then I had also said, like, well, if I lose out on that money, I'm not going to feel good about going with my first friend anywhere because I'm going to have to spend money when I'm with her. So I was just like, I was losing it. And I actually did. I remember I was so frustrated. If I didn't cry, I was really close to it. And I had told my second friend, I don't think I can do this. Like, I'm actually having a panic attack. I told my first friend I'm not coming, like or something like that. I most likely will not be coming, and it was just hectic. And I'm telling you, this was like on Tuesday or Wednesday of that week, where later I was going to um, meet up with her. It was wild, y'all. So somehow, miraculously, I was able to get the cancellation. It was like literally, I think the last day that I could not get it, or like, it was, if I hadn't gotten it by that day, I would have just been out all that money. And so I'm like, okay, like you told me to trust, you told me don't worry about the ticket, and you told me, or you helped me out of this, so I'm gonna, so, and then there's this overlying feeling because like at first I didn't really see it as anything more than just I want to see my friends, like that was it, you know, and maybe do this one thing that I know, like God had, like I say, he given me a prophetic word about this artist, but there wasn't anything really too like I have to do this, like this is my calling or something like that. It wasn't like that. Like it was just, you know, whatever. So, yeah, I was just like, okay, like I'm gonna trust you. I'm gonna move forward. Like this is gonna happen. After I got the cancellation, but actually it was so bad. Like I had worked myself up so much that I actually was it like I needed a day of like rest or like maybe not a day, but just a significant amount of time where I just like was laying there and sleeping, I think, because I was just so exhausted. I'd been given everything into because I also like I was really picky about where I wanted to stay. Obviously I still messed up, but yeah, I don't know. There was a lot and I felt stressed and it was not going well. So, so I was telling my friend, I think, I'm not gonna do it. And then I was able to recharge, spend time with the Lord, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go forward with this. You'll see me on this day. I was saying this to my first friend. I was still trying to figure out things with my next friend because, like I say, because of the time differences and stuff, she really wasn't able to help me like I would have liked. That's not her fault or anything, but just like that was the reality of the situation. And I think I mentioned that we were meeting in LA, so that was even more reason why I was very like, I need to be very careful with where I stay because there are parts of LA that are not the most friendly. So, yeah. So by this point, I had figured out pretty much, sorry, the first set of plans, and I'm like, yeah, we're, I'll, I'll go through with this. I still needed to figure out how to get. I was like looking back at this, and I went from point A to point B to point C to point D, and I needed to figure out how to get from um, where my friend was going to. I had mentioned that she was going to be an hour outside of LA, so I needed to figure out how to get from that place to LA, more specifically, my hotel, but at least LA. And so I was still unsure about that, but I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna move forward. If he's given me a word about a part of this trip, which he did, it was the ticket thing. Why would I not have faith about the whole thing? So that was kind of where my perspective was, even though I was like dead tired. And this is where like I would argue personally that like there's a division of flesh and spirit in this, where, or I guess it's basically the logic thing that I was talking about. Like logically, there was no reason for me to really like continue and to put all this effort into it, but spiritually, there was something that it was like, this feels like I need to go forward, like for some reason. And the main theme of this whole thing is when the Lord speaks, you listen. I'm going to say this throughout the whole entire story. When the Lord speaks, you listen. When he tells you do not worry, you listen. That do not worry theme is riddled throughout the whole Bible. I just finished a whole freaking like passage on that in Matthew 6. Do not worry. I can go on a tangent. I'm not going to. So I had, like I said, I had figured out the plans with the first friend, so I was basically ready to go. Um, and I did. I met up with her. It was awesome. We had such a fun time. I miss her. If she sees this, I miss you. And yeah. And then I had to figure out. The only thing that wasn't fun was I kind of had it hanging over my head. Again, I like to plan. I like to be like. I like to have things like organized. Even if I'm not, like, I'm not that organized, but, like, I like the idea of it, okay? Um, I told her, or I had said, like, I'm a little frustrated because I don't have, I don't know what transportation to take from the place that we're going to be into LA and to, because I'm like, okay, if I do this, then there's this issue. If I take an Uber, that's kind of expensive. If I take, a train, then I have to go through the train station there, and the train station there is low key also kind of known to be a little ghetto. But um, there was just all these things, and like I don't often travel by myself, so that was another element of it, and I don't like feel the most comfortable doing so. So it's just like all these moving parts. I'm gonna do a part two to this.